And oh no, she kills him, but she's unalive. This is not accurate. If you actually stabbed a pirate like that, he probably would feel it. And I do like the way he's over-exaggerating the sort of madness. That's the thing that lots of pirates did. There we have the most beautiful woman on the planet, who is also a pig. Hello, I'm Iszi Lawrence. I'm a history presenter, and I also have written Blackbeard's Treasure, which is an historically accurate book about pirates in the Caribbean in the early 18th century. And I'm here to review some pirate films. Here we go. There she is, she's drowned in the water, and then she's got to release the corsets, which, you know, again, we've got corsets depicted as being very tight in history, and there are a lot of fashion historians who will sort of say, actually, they're really comfortable and they're not put on that tightly. But, you know, why not for the sake of this?
Where did you get that?
Here we go, point of a sword, there you have. Now, this is obviously mid 18th century, because the men, you know, the redcoats in red, that's fine. I like the fact that those guys aren't wearing periwigs. All the other guys in redcoats are wearing periwigs, which suggests that they're all officers, which seems a bit weird that they're doing this. You've got a huge like, Admiralty meeting going on. Why are they in these wigs? They're really expensive, those wigs. They cost like 30 quid, even at the beginning of the century. Nobody was branded a pirate, but you know, whatever. People were branded. If you're clergy and you got, you know, arrested for something, you could be branded, but then you couldn't plead clergy again.
No doubt the worst pirate I've ever heard of.
But you have heard of me.
And this line here, "but you have heard of me," is wonderful. That's what you wanted as a pirate. You wanted your name to precede you, so people would give up before fighting you.
A lifetime of wickedness.
It seems enough to condemn him.
Indeed.
And there, my goodness, a lady wandering around in her underwear. I mean, even now it's slightly rude. I'm not looking, but it is slightly rude. You know. And then, for whatever reason, the cuffs that they put on him are obviously leg irons, because they've got enough room to move his hands, which is a weird thing to put, but never mind.
Sticks and stones, love. I saved your life, you saved.
And this, you know, why not? He would have been very smelly as well, remember? But then she would have probably been a bit smelly as well. I think we're both thankful they've been in seawater.
Captain Jack Sparrow.
Bit of adventure. Everybody stops because everybody forgets they've got a gun. And off he goes. Off he goes. Massive cannon crashing down. That's pretty... I mean, I wouldn't jump in straight after it, but fair enough. Here we have the Black Pearl, which is a nice figurehead at the front. Those cannons, not rocking the ship at all. Those cannons, it would be terrifying to be that close to a cannon. You know, the sails, which are down. Why are the sails down if the ship's still? You'd have, you know, tied them up a bit. Busy deck, but not busy enough. You'd have it probably at least 6 men to each gun. And what are they firing at? It's not clear. What are they doing? It would have been organised. I mean, basically, you don't want all the cannons to go off at once as well. You've got to organise that. You need a rolling shot, because otherwise you could tear the ship apart.
When spoken to.
And he'll not lay a hand on those under the protection of parley.
Now, this thing about pirate code and parley is pretty much nonsense. Yes, there is pirate codes. There are many pirate codes. Every pirate ship has its own code, which is an agreement that everybody agrees. They sign even, they make a mark, and they say, we agree to these rules. And really, that could be, yes, if somebody says, I wish to talk before being punished, parley, that could be in one of the rules. But it'd been only specific to that crew. Not even that crew all the time, because every single mission they go on, they might change the rules. Pirate code is real. This sort of universal brethren of pirates where they all follow the same rules, not real.
I'll drop it.
This also is just really bad storytelling, because as we remember, later on in this film, they can walk along the seabed. Just let her drop it. What are you doing? Oh, I'm going to drop it in the ocean. Okay, we can go and get it. We've proven that later in the film.
Well, I suppose if it is worthless, then there's no point in me keeping it.
He's got a monkey there, which the French, I believe, introduced a lot of monkeys into the Caribbean because they used to be very fashionable pets. And I don't think there's a lot of monkeys on islands like St Kitts, which were actually not native until Europeans got there. And yeah, but they did make good pets. Once again, though, monkeys need a lot of water, and so keeping them on board ship, not a good idea. You're much better off with a parrot.
I didn't steal it, if that's what you mean.
Very well, you hand it over and we'll put your town to our rudder and ne'er return.
I mean, you've got a slight movement of the ship here, but I mean, even in port, you're going to be up and down a bit more. It feels very still. It doesn't feel like you're, you know, oh, that's a very loose piece of rigging. What's that doing? Why isn't everything taut? And he's giving the orders, which is good. It's good that you see some African representation on here, because a lot of pirates were maroon slaves or black African merchants, not all speaking English either, a lot of them speaking Spanish, and obviously African languages, which is where we get patois from. Oh no, she kills him, but she's unalive. This is not accurate. If you actually stabbed a pirate like that, he probably would feel it. But this is obviously fantasy. We can forgive a bit of fantasy. Can't forgive that though. That is, I mean, obviously they are heaving the anchor. They've got the captain. They're walking around it, heaving it up. That takes forever, and you need a lot more men on board ship doing that than's depicted here. I think HMS Victory, it was 300 men needed to raise the anchor total, so it would have been the entire crew involved doing that, and it took them 5.5 hours, and that's a similar sized vessel to the Black Pearl depicted here, maybe slightly larger. Also, that wheel there, that's connected to the rudder. You can't just spin it like it's a top. It's 2 men usually to move the rudder.
Look! The moonlight shows us.
And the sails, once again, nothing's going to sail with that many holes in. You would get holes in the sails quite regularly because that's what other ships were attacking. So Port Royal is a real place, and back in the 17th century, it was a very important place for buccaneers because the British allowed people to trade there and to get their boats out of water to scrape the sea worm off it, because otherwise your boat wouldn't last very long at all. You needed to get your boats, you needed to have repairs. Places like Port Royal, places later on like Nassau, would be places where people would go who were pirates who could actually make some money and trade. So it's a guaranteed place as a pirate you could go without getting arrested. Johnny Depp's portrayal of Captain Jack Sparrow as this sort of cool rock star is bang on, because pirates were seen by the general populace as incredibly cool and sexy. I mean, seriously, the golden age of piracy was really, in my opinion, sort of like 1715 to 1722, something like that. The general history of pirates came out late, like in 1724. So everybody was talking about pirates. They were seen as so cool. They were breaking all the rules. These were men without like blood right, acting like lords. They were incredibly cool. Like word had got out that loads of people wanted to be pirates. They were living a life which nobody dared to live. They were literally seizing their freedom and just going for it. You know, they weren't servants of like a government anymore, or of companies who wanted to make money, and of the sort of general grind of like being a commoner. When you were a pirate, you were basically going, okay, I'm not going to live long. I'm going to have a short bloody life, and it will be a very good one.
Down the main deck. Lock down the bridge. Yeah. Listen up. We have been boarded by 4 armed pirates.
What I love about this film, though, is look at that background. Look at everything. It is so real. And I think for this show in particular, I mean, look at it. They're actually on a boat. And I think this is an exact copy. It's a sister ship of the boat that was attacked by pirates.
Help arrives. No one comes out until you hear the non-duress password from me, which is supper time.
Historically, this is the 3rd attack that this ship had undergone by pirates, and they pretty much knew they were on their own. They don't have weapons on board because you're not allowed to basically bring weapons into port at this time, and so they're basically, these Somali pirates are just going to come on and do what they like, because once they're on board, I mean, that's your issue. And the reason they didn't think they were going to get attacked is because it's such a large ship and they didn't think that the Somalis would have ladders. And what's also really nice about this film is those men, they didn't get a Hollywood actor, those men are local Somali actors. And they look it, you know, they look as though they are real.
All right.
Now, I saw an interview with Captain Phillips which says that he said he's not brave, and he wasn't as brave as he's depicted in this film. There are moments where he sort of says, no, take me, not them, and I don't think the real Captain Phillips did that. But obviously, this is Hollywood.
Relax. Nobody get hurt. No Al-Qaeda here.
And obviously they're speaking English, which is what they would have done. Broken English, because it's not first language, but, you know, that communication is really important. And from what I understand, the way the Somali pirates would attack, initially they were just trying to ward off fishermen from their coastline. Then they worked out they could actually make more money by capturing passing ships than they could fishing in the first place after their fishing grounds have been decimated. So these people have been forced into this, but at the same time, they're greedy.
We just got the
Dollars.
we do. Kenny? Kenny, what do we have in the safe? We've got like what, $30,000 in the safe? Yeah, like we got like we have in the.
So the dialogue is real. I mean, this is taken from Captain Phillips' book. I mean, they have elaborated a bit by saying that, you know, he's saying don't point the gun at him, point the gun at me. But they really did offer $30,000. So, you know, that's quite a substantial amount of money, you would think. But no, Somali pirates, especially on hearing that they're American, definitely wanted more.
That means the computer's now offline.
Captain.
The ship's broken.
Captain. No one get hurt if you don't play no game.
The ship's broken.
That's not the truth, and it's dangerous to lie to a man with a gun. However, you know, capturing people is a pirate's way of also making money, and that's since Roman times. I mean, Julius Caesar was famously captured by pirates, and he would sort of joke with them and say, when I get out of here, I'm going to come back and kill you all. And they didn't believe him, and then he did. So you have to imagine how stuffy it is inside one of those life, you know, boats. You're not meant to be in there. I mean, in reality, he was in there for 5 days with these people. So, you know, you can imagine the horror of living in there. I mean, in this film, he asks to urinate to go out, and that's how he makes his escape. I think that's a bit of elaboration by the filmmakers there. But he does jump into the sea as is depicted. Now, obviously, the pirates at this point, they want him back. He's really important to them. And without, you know, that hostage on board, they're basically sitting ducks because nothing, you know, there's no reason not to shoot them out of the water.
Hey, we got 2 guys in the water. What about Phillips? One of them Phillips? We don't know. We can't tell.
And here, now, I believe as well, all of these scenes of the Americans, the people in the background are real naval officers. They just used them, they didn't bother with extras. So it's got a real authenticity, this film. And just this, the darkness. I mean, because if you can imagine being in the water when it's dark, that sort of inky blackness, it feels like death. It's just absolutely terrifying.
One more in the water. We've got one more in the water.
Now, this is obviously a fight scene of the 2 men, you know, fighting each other. However, you know, drowning people will do this. If you go into the water and rescue somebody who's drowning, they will just climb on top of you and push you under, trying to get up above the water. I know for a fact that the crew, lots of the crew, were not happy with the way that Captain Phillips handled the whole situation. They said that he put them in danger of the pirates, mainly because of the way that he took them through sort of Somali pirate water. He wanted to take the fastest route. He thought that was the best option, whereas they wanted to take a more evasive route, which they thought would have left them out of trouble. But again, I mean, this is before you had mercenaries on board a lot of this international shipping. And also it was a case that, you know, avoiding them's really hard, and most people thought that ships this size couldn't be taken. I mean, it's remarkable that a small pirate crew managed to climb on board this ship. I mean, when you've got the deck sort of 13 meters above sea level, it's not going to. They just didn't think it would be possible. So the way the Somali pirates are attacking here, using small boats to go after a big one, is historically how a lot of pirates do overtake larger vessels. It's called a cutting out action, and it's basically you put your crew in the smaller vessels. They can, you know, overwhelm a larger ship by coming in at multiple sides, and also they're far more nimble than a great big ship, which takes a long time to turn, you know, and evade them. So it's a really common tactic that's been used throughout history.
Fellow by the name of Long John Silver. I didn't waste my time poring over his credentials. All the credentials I needed was a taste of his ham and his buttered eggs. You can judge for yourself.
I love this set. This set is so good. The accuracy that's gone into this is beautiful. I'm just going to say that. The clothing's pretty spot on as well for mid 18th century. The way they've tied their hair is pretty good. Look at that. I mean, now the reason he's freaking out here isn't just because, you know, it's the 1950s and you're appalled by disabilities. That is because he's been told to not trust a man with one leg.
So much about the two of ye. It comes natural to call ye by name, it do.
But the chairs are 18th century chairs. I get very excited by comb back chairs, and that is beautiful. The glassware as well. I'm looking at that, and that looks genuine. The silver, though, I mean, how rich is this cook? I mean, he keeps a good table, I'll say. Look at it.
Admiral, you never took scurvy from the salt pork and our deck. Not with a barrel of apples aboard for the men to chew on.
And no candlelight, and it would have been much dingier and darker than obviously they can depict it for film. And I don't know what fish that's from. I can't remember its name now, but that is a real thing that people would have displayed. The conch shells in the back, showing that he's already been to the Caribbean.
He do, sir. I've noticed it afar. It wouldn't surprise me none to hear you say, "Heave at the anchor." We say.
And also, it shows you this is not a poor man, and yet why does he want even more treasure? It's this mad-eyed wildness, this want for adventure. He's got danger written all over him, even though he's so presentable and so trustworthy. Surely these, you know, aristocratic idiots would trust him, wouldn't they?
Them that die'll be the lucky ones.
I find the whole situation here really bizarre with this stockade, which is exactly how it is depicted in the books. But I'm not sure why there would be a stockade on this particular island that's pretty much uninhabited, other than maybe it was a lookout point, but it's not on high land. So I don't really understand what it's doing there.
Slash 'em down.
The pirates attacking, and there's a pistol going off, successfully killing a man, and another pistol going off, another pistol going off. Obviously, you know, Long John Silver unable to join in the attack because he's only got one leg. I'm very surprised that all of these guns are working so well and so smoothly, because it's notorious for pistols. The more you fire them, the worse the barrel gets, and the less easy they are to aim because the dirt gets in the way. Musket balls in particular, they've got a flat side because of the way that they're made. And so they're deciding to move tactics, to move out. I personally find that open fire very close to the gunpowder slightly scary, but, you know, not as scary as pirates attacking, or indeed the dead man holding a sword to his belly.
Cut that captain down!
It seems to be run at each other with your body wide open with a sword. Not the best tactics for fighting. It's not very realistic fighting, but it is Disney, so, you know. And, you know, the set makes up for it. The set is beautiful. but now he's going to kill a child, which is historically accurate for the time. They did like to kill whoever they liked. But there we go. Man rushes in, saves him. There we go, with one blow of the sword, and then hits him on the nose. I love that. That is good fighting. That is practical. I don't think, a broken nose might stop him, but it certainly disables you. And to use both bits of the sword is really good.
They're on the run. Take cover before they reload. Come back here, you lovely turd! Oh!
Long John Silver very upset that his plan hasn't worked. And I do like the way he's over-exaggerating the sort of madness. That's the thing that lots of pirates did. Now this, I mean, come on. If you're going to get hit by a musket ball, that you notice it going in. That would really explode. It wouldn't just be a little bit of blood. It would be a full-on, but you're being hit with a mini cannon. Come on. I think in ports like Bristol, there certainly would have been, sailors, possibly even ex-privateers, maybe even people who got away with piracy, maybe, as long as they were low enough rank. I mean, the captains of pirate ships are pretty much known. I mean, Charles Vane famously, he ended up marooned on an island. He tried to get on another boat to be rescued as a normal sailor, and he was, immediately recognised by one of the crew and said, no, that's a pirate captain, and that's how he got captured. So I don't think a captain who'd actually held up a lot of people and been really successful would be able to negotiate a way out unless, say, Long John Silver was a captain in like the early 18th century, and then in 1718 he took the king's pardon. And then he would have been forgiven for everything, and he could have travelled home, had a nice life as a tavern keeper, and then 20, 30 years later, when he was an old man and his legs still hadn't grown back, he could then, take the advantage and go to sea. But it's a bit dodgy. I would say Long John Silver would have to have been low-ranking crew, and then why would that many people be following him? It's difficult. It is difficult. As for his depiction in this film, I mean, I love the fact that he's so tanned. This is a famous thing about pirates, is how tanned they're, because there's no sunscreen, and you're working in like the Caribbean, the heat is incredible, so you take all your clothes off and you go really brown. There are stories that I've read of freed slaves, Muslim slaves who write these biographies, and they sort of say, I went aboard this ship and I wasn't sure who was black and who was Spanish because they looked, the same skin tone just through the tan. So you get an idea of, just how sort of burnt to a crisp they were. But yeah, I don't see anything entirely wrong other than his very white teeth in this film with the depiction of Long John Silver in the way they have.
Places from where the dead men hang high.
That way!
You're gonna go?
Howdy, vous stinky froggy man.
Now, we are in the Caribbean. Treasure Island is set in the Caribbean, and I would argue that what we're seeing here is a very Hawaiian depiction of, and when I say depiction, stereotypical, very dodgy view of native peoples. Obviously, pigs are not native to the Caribbean anyway, so this is completely false and wrong for that reason alone.
Are we lucky or what?
Silence, smelly sailormans! You have violated Sacred Island!
Excuse me. I am Captain Smollett. We mean no harm to your culture. We embrace all...
Some of the art in the background, so you've got things which look a bit like the Easter Island heads in a bit, and you've got a big gong as well. I mean, these guys here, they look like, Rapa Nui carvings and that sort of thing. Flaming torches. It feels very Pacific Island, and I love the Pacific Islanders, and this is an unfair, amusing, but unfair depiction. There we have the most beautiful woman on the planet, who is also a pig, but and who wouldn't be impressed? Is she riding an anteater? Interesting. Well, she's not riding, she's fallen off, but in the most beautiful way.
Greetings! Moi am Benjamin Gunn, Maroney, Temptress, and Queen of this...
She's got coins around her pearl necklace as well, and with a that appears to be jaguar that she's wearing on the dress, which is South America, so that might be correct. And here we have the Floridian, maybe, or the rats watching the things going on. And the big gong, which feels very, East Asian, but never mind. A boy confused and being faced with Tim Curry, and it's just a dream of delights, isn't it? Who wouldn't want to be? Apparently him, though, he looks upset.
Initiate you into our enterprising company.
So I love this over-dramatic depiction of pirates and the fact that they're trying to be scary and they're trying to be dramatic, and that's exactly how a decent pirate captain would be. He'd want to instill fear into people without having to hurt them in any way. Just threatening him with a tie, look, and that's enough. That's enough to make him say, you're all horrible pirates. And he's like, pirates? And the mad laugh and the unpredictability is great.
Oh, Jim. If that's what you're thinking, you're dead wrong.
When I was just a lad.
Now, this is a weird sort of analysis of why you become a pirate. So the idea is, they're seeing it as vocation, that people hear about being a pirate and want to be a pirate, and certainly that is true. Stede Bonnet was a plantation owner, very well-to-do, and decided he wanted to be a pirate because of the tales that he heard about people like Henry Avery. He built his own pirate ship and went to sea and was particularly bad at being a pirate, but he did try.
True friendship and adventure are what we can't live without.
And when you're a professional...
And here we have, the representation of being a pirate is actually, we're quite good. And genuinely, a lot of pirates were good because they had letters of marque. They were allowed to go after crews and capture their stuff and keep the things that they had aboard just because they were doing it in the name of empire.
It's how you look at buccaneers that makes them bad or good.
And it doesn't always have to be as violent, certainly not as violent as it is on a merchant vessel. I mean, merchant seamen treated their staff, the sailors on those vessels, terribly. I mean, it was really quite horrible. Corporal punishment was rampant.
I could have been a lawyer, but I just had too much heart.
I could have been in politics.
Going, I could have been this, I could have been that. No, if you were a working class person in Britain, you had a choice of basically staying a peasant on the land. I mean, maybe you could get a job as a fighter. I don't think they had that sort of entertainment that much, as in terms of sportsmen and boxing and that sort of thing at that point in the 17th century. 18th century. Miss Piggy in this film is Benjamina Gunn, replacing Benjamin Gunn from the original book, which I love. I mean, because there's nothing more... I mean, if you can't fit Miss Piggy into a movie, is it a movie? So there was a real issue in 17th and 18th century Britain, which was that there was a seizure of common lands by the upper classes, which meant that it was almost impossible to survive anymore as a working class person without a wage. This is a brand new thing, a wage. It meant you needed a job. So you had to make your own food using very little common land that was left, and then also supplement, be able to pay the rent, which was a new thing as well, by having a job. And this is before factories. So the main way that you could make, money was joining the military, joining the navy, or joining the merchant navy. And so lots of young men were driven to the docks, and loads of them didn't want to be. Nobody wanted to be a merchant navyman. It was really horrific. There's corporal punishment, there's very little food, you're going to get sick, guaranteed. You're probably going to die from that sickness. You were treated as totally expendable, often dumped in the Caribbean against your will. There was nothing you can do. Sometimes you were sold into effective servitude, and that was another option to you. You could, sell yourself as an indentured servant and basically be a slave for 10 years and then get given a bit of land at the end. But it was not what you wanted to do. I mean, the colonies were mainly seen, in the 17th century, that's where you sent prisoners. That's where loads of Irish people ended up in the Caribbean because they were, fighting against Oliver Cromwell. So he said, let's get rid of them, put them in the Caribbean and use them as slaves there. So it was really like the worst thing you'd want to do is to join the Navy because it was horrible. You weren't paid very much. And then suddenly Well, what if you got your own boat and you took your own stuff and then you could get paid like a captain and everybody got a fair share and you could vote on the rules and decide what you were doing with your life, and suddenly you were free and you didn't have to do what anybody told you to do. If you didn't want to be part of the crew, you could just not sign up. You could not agree to the pirate code, you'd be left in dock, fine. In the Caribbean, you can survive on eating things like, there's food everywhere. There are conches with, shellfish. There are like turtles, you can eat the turtles. You don't need to work. Thank you for watching this video all about the history of pirates. I've been Iszi Lawrence. This has been History Hit. Check out all the other videos that they're popping up all around me. They are all excellent. Expand your mind, learn about history. It's fun.